All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Sunday, December 29th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. We're back, Clayton. The last broadcast of 2024. We were all about survive till 2025, and we're almost there. We're gonna. I mean, I think it's safe to say we will survive till 2025, both the theatrical industry and the BO boys. Or do you feel like these last couple of days you may perish before 2025?
I'd rather not jinx it.
Okay. All right. You know what? I am gonna jinx it for myself. I have survived till 2025. There, said it. And if it doesn't happen, boom, it'll be an even bigger news story because I jinxed it. So there
Hmm.
you go. Um, but we're gonna get into it now. We got results for the 3 days, for the 5 days, for the first 5 days of the holiday corridor. That is what this time of year is called. It is called the holiday corridor. So, Clayton, could you give us a plow for the box office weekend of Christmas 2024?
Number one, Sonic the Hedgehog made $38 million, down 37%. It added 8 theaters. It's at $136.8 million in its second weekend of release. Number two, Mufasa, The Lion King, made $37.1 million, plus 5%. It lost no theaters. It's at 113.4 million in its second weekend. Number three, a newbie, Nosferatu made $21.1 million in its first weekend of release. Number four, Wicked made $19.4 million, up 37%. It lost 119 theaters. It's at $424.2 million in its sixth weekend of release. Number five, Moana 2 made $18.2 million, plus 38%. It lost 190 theaters. It's at $394.6 million in its fifth weekend of release. And then two newbies. We had A Complete Unknown made $11.6 million in its first frame, and A24's Babygirl made $4.3 million in its first frame. And that's your lucky number 11.
All right. So, I think it, you ranked it here using the numbers ranking based on the 3-day weekends. Over at Deadline on the Sunday right through, Anthony D is for, I guess, Dracula, let's say this weekend. D. Alessandro, he was ranking him by the 5 days. So in the Deadline ranking, he has Mufasa up at the top
Mm-hmm.
there. So we're once again, we've got this battle for number one. And I guess we have to go with the 3 day because that is how weekend rankings are done. Um, but Mufasa does now have a claim to the throne of being number one because Mufasa in the 5 day did $63 million, whereas Sonic in the 5 day did $59 million. Do you have any? You know, are you on Team Mufasa here for number one, or do you think Sonic should be declared number one because he won the 3 day?
Well, it's a 3 day that counts. I mean, if we're looking at it, I mean, it's the 3 day that counts, I
Mm-hmm.
think, for what the ranking is. That's how we've always done it. But I mean, it was a nice rebound by Mufasa. I mean, by no means is this I mean, it's not a disaster, but this definitely still doesn't bode well for this movie in the long run comparatively.
Right.
I mean, it's not gonna I don't think this is a greatest showman situation. I think what came to pass was
Could it be
what
a
we
Puss in
said.
Boots Last Wish?
No, I mean, I think what I mean, because the budget's so much different here. Like, I mean,
Mhm,
this was
mhm.
supposed to be $1 billion baby.
Yes,
And it's not
yes.
gonna be that, and that's the problem here. And this was the consensus, feels like, inoffensive pick. There was a lot of children and guardians and parents and
Mhm.
uncles and aunts bored at Mufasa this weekend. So
Right.
that's great for theaters in the sense that the money was made, but I don't
Yep.
see Mufasa becoming any sort of phenomenon the way Wicked has become, or even Moana 2, which I don't think Moana 2 is a phenomenon. I think that's just like a decent movie that people were excited for and went to see. I mean, Mufasa's no Wicked.
Mufasa is no Wicked. It
And
could
they
have
wanted
been a
it to be
disaster,
Wicked.
though.
They wanted
Yes.
it to be Wicked.
Well, it's Lion King. It's the third theatrical Lion King movie. They wanted this to be gigantic. This movie made 59 million in its 5-day weekend, or 63 million in its 5-day weekend. That's what they would have wanted the opening 3-day weekend to be. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. Let's face it. It's a rebound. It's a good hold. Mufasa didn't collapse, but this is what you would have wanted easily for the opening 3 days. And the fact that now we're supposed to celebrate Mufasa and throw parades for Mufasa because in its second 5-day, it did what it should have done in the original 3-day. I mean, come on. We can't do that here. That's not how we close out our 2024 by this fall celebration for Mufasa.
And I think 63.7 is a disappointment in a 3-day opening weekend for this movie.
Yes.
Truly.
Truly, yes, yes. So it obviously there was a nightmare scenario
Mhm.
where the public would have fully rejected Mufasa, and this movie would have dropped and played to empty auditoriums around the country. That didn't happen. Its second 3-day weekend did a 5% increase over what it opened from, but it opened so much lower than it should have ever
Mhm.
dreamed to open.
Mhm.
And so we've got to temper these parades for Mufasa. There's a lot of football bowl games happening the next week. A lot of parades are going to happen around different small towns in America. Let's not clutter the parade industry by throwing parades for Mufasa right now.
And I think there's a lot of talk, I mean, you even mentioned this, that Mufasa might end up doing 70 over this 5-day, like some really high
Yeah.
estimates here, and I think it came back down to earth in a
Hmm.
way where it's like, "Yeah, okay, this is just gonna be a movie that does fine."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a movie that was built for this time of year because this is the time of year when family who don't have much to say to each other and who oftentimes are only seeing each other once or twice a year are now forced to be in homes, vacation homes, Airbnbs together, and they need something inoffensive, non-political, all ages to drag themselves to so they could stop making small talk. And Mufasa
Mhm.
is the perfect type of movie for that. Everyone has heard of these Lion Kings. They could take the kid to it, they could take the uncle to it. So and it's got the marketing push where everyone's aware of it. So it was
Mhm.
had to do some amount of money, but this is
Yeah,
not going to be a phenomenon. It is not. Let's talk Sonic though, because this is something we haven't brought up in this Sonic news cycle, but longtime listeners, longtime wannabe O boys, wannabe O girls, wannabe O people
people.
who've been with us since the beginning, they remember us talking when that first Sonic came out. That we all and Anthony D is for Disney, D. Alessandro, he wouldn't dare say this, but we called it at the time one of Bob Iger's biggest mistakes in his time at Disney was that
Greatest
he
regret.
did not biggest regret. I mean, he didn't put this in the memoir, maybe because he's saving it to be the focus of his follow-up memoir. That his biggest regret was he didn't buy the Sonic IP. That
Mhm.
Paramount owns the IP to Sonic. Disney, they bought Star Wars, they bought Marvel, they did not buy Sonic.
They bought the
And
Muppets,
they bought the Muppets. They
the
chose
Simpsons.
the Simpsons are good for streaming. It's good. And they listen, when is the Simpsons movie 2 coming out? Because that first one is a forgotten blockbuster.
Mhm.
And big screen, let's see Lisa Simpson with an iPad. People will
Mhm.
pay to see that. But yes, the Muppets. I mean, this day and age, why are you buying Animal and Fozzie Bear over Sonic and Shadow? It makes no sense. And Disney could have had Sonic. They don't have Sonic. And this is one of those weekends where Bob Iger, he's eating that Christmas ham, but it's got to have a bitter taste in his mouth, knowing that this Sonic the Hedgehog, who he could have owned
Mhm.
this guy, is run in circles around Mufasa. I mean,
Yeah,
do you think that this ruined Bob Iger's Christmas?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think if it was any other sort of situation, he'd be like, okay, well, we sort of knew Mufasa was weak, but I think this is a harder pill to swallow.
Right. 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 That it's if it was just Wicked
Mhm.
was the thing that was beating Mufasa, he could have lived with that.
Mhm.
Because I mean the Wizard of Oz, he's made money on Wizard of Oz IP in the past. They did the Sam Raimi Wizard of Oz was a Disney production. They've had a taste of Oz.
Mhm.
But so he could have accepted if that was the movie that was beat Mufasa number one in the 3 day. But the fact that it's Sonic, that it's the one that got away. That's
Mhm.
the thing. It would be it's as if your ex who you didn't put the ring on it, is talking about big football halftime shows, put a ring on it. And Bob
She didn't
Iger
sing
never
that
put
song. All she did was sing songs.
cowboy
Never
songs,
mind.
cowboy songs.
Cowboy songs.
Um, but everyone knows that's the song of the one who got away. Put a ring on it.
Mhm.
And Bob Iger did not put a ring on Sonic, and his ex is making his new girlfriend Mufasa look like a bozo.
Mhm.
And that's gotta sting. Do you think that Bob Iger's kids and grandkids and step grandkids and kids who he pretends not to know about, who are all at Christmas time together this time of year. Do you think those kids are giving Bob Iger a hard time about why didn't you buy Sonic, Grandpapa? Why did you buy Mufasa instead?
I mean, I don't know. I think he's the guy who buys the best presents and keeps them all, viable and in healthcare. So I don't think they're. I don't think they're giving him any sort of guff. You know.
You don't think Iger's great grandkids and great grandkids who he's not allowed to talk about, perhaps they're just buy me a boat. I won't mention that you didn't
Mhm.
that you screwed the pooch on Sonic.
Yeah, I think it's more along that way. I mean, that's how rich kids are. They just like suckle at the teat.
Right. Well, I'm going to throw this out here, Clayton, because I'm sure these Bob Iger grandkids, all of these industry grandkids, entertainment industry grandkids, they listen to the BO Boys.
Of course.
I get it if you don't want a Christmas morning, Grandpapa Iger's just giving you a boat or a drone or a diamond coat, whatever. You don't want to say it to his face, but email us, the BO Boys podcast, if you are one of Bob Iger's heirs, and you want to blow off some steam about how he screwed the pooch on not getting Sonic into Disney, email us anonymously. You know, don't use your at grandkidofbobiger.com email address. Use a different email address, and we will air your grievances here on the show.
Mhm.
And we won't let it get back to Bob. So he'll still buy you your drones, buy you your, ruby hats, whatever it is that these kids are into.
Um, do we wanna talk Nosferatu?
We have to, because I think that the discussion here is Drac back, or is this an attack on Drac? Because Nosferatu, could we safely say this is a huge opening weekend for
Well,
Nosferatu?
21.1 in the 3-day and 40.3 in the 5-day. So, yeah, that's good. You know,
That's yeah.
yeah. So, 4th best opening for a focus feature,
Mm-hmm.
right under London Has Fallen, which is great. I, for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, was still thinking I was just like, Nosferatu's A24, but it's not. I kept thinking that, and, but yeah, this movie, I mean, you know, this is like a really good opening for a movie of this type,
Mm-hmm.
especially around this time of year, And yeah, it really sort of capitalized on its buzz in a really positive way.
Yeah. It's I it's a huge win for the director, Robert Eggers, because I mean, he's had hits on a certain level. Because I would say The Witch and The Lighthouse are definite A24 level hits, where I think The Witch probably made around 20, The Lighthouse made 25. This is off the top of the dome, but I'm probably right. Like, made in that level on low budgets. The Northman is definitely not a hit. It was a
Mm.
PVOD moneymaker, but theatrically underperformed for its budget. But this is a huge hit. This is a movie that makes a director, puts him in a position to level up on their next movie. Um, so it's a hit for Eggers, but Clayton, is this a hit for Dracula? Because Dracula's had a rough time. We've given Dracula a lot of guff. If you went to the BO Boys live tour when we did the Fallen box office stars of 2024, Dracula's up there. You know,
Mhm.
Renfield, Last Voyage of the Demeter. Dracula has been a box office bozo for years now. And does this mean that Dracula as a character is back? Because he's not Dracula. He is a vampire. Nosferatu is a different guy than Dracula. But do
Mhm.
you think people went to this movie thinking, let's go see the Dracula movie?
Well, and just quickly, Witch made 25, Lighthouse only made 10, and then Northman made 34. But the
Okay.
Northman budget was way, way higher than what he was working with on The Witch and the Lighthouse.
Yes.
So this is a great rebound. I mean, I think for all intents and purposes, people refer to Nosferatu as Dracula the way you would refer to tissues as Kleenex. So I
Mm,
do think that this is just a Dracula movie. When we say Dracula, we mean vampire movies. You know what I mean? So
gotcha. So
yeah,
even like
yeah,
John Carpenter's vampires, that's
it's a
Dracula.
Dracula. It's a Dracula movie. Yeah, because I
It's a
do think
Dracula movie.
Dracula
Okay.
shows up in it, maybe, possibly. But yeah, so I think people were like, let's see the Dracula movie with Johnny Depp's daughter in it. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies where it's like, what does this mean for the people in it too? Is this
Mm,
just the fact that it was Robert Eggers? Was that really why people went to see this movie?
right. Right. Yeah. What is, because this overperformed, I would say, everyone's expectations. People were not looking for a $40 million opening for this movie.
Mhm.
This is pretty big. So, what is the reason for it to overperform to that level? Is it just people needed some horror? It had been a while. Because what's the last big horror hit? Is it Smile 2 and Terrifier 3? Have we not had November horror, right? November is Moana, is Wicked. So we might not have had horror in a while. Is this just a case of the gore hounds that needed to be fed? Or is there a star or something specific that made this open to this is such an overperformance.
Yeah, so it was 18 to 34-year-olds came at 56%. So that's a
Wow.
pretty high number for youngsters. So I feel like that is because of Eggers,
Okay.
you know.
More than
I
Lily
think
Rose Depp.
I think so. Although she does have her fans, interestingly enough.
Mhm.
But not in our age demo for sure.
Right. Right. I mean, she had, cuz what is she most famous for? She's not a Euphoria cast member, right?
Um, no, she was in the show
The show
that
with The Weekend.
the weekend, yeah.
Yeah,
So
she was
here's
in the show with The Weekend.
quickly,
Um,
here's why people went to see this movie,
great.
Nosferatu from Post Track. Horror genre, 48%, director,
Wow.
Robert Eggers, 32, 33% thought the monster and babe feature looked fun and entertaining. So a lot of walk-up business here, 59% as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I think that shows you that it is the fact that there was a audience starved for horror, and there's an audience that likes Robert Eggers. I don't see anything about Lily Rose Depp in here.
Okay. Okay. So this is not a case of, so you don't think that this is Yoga Hosers fans coming out in force to finally support the co-star of Yoga Hosers?
If that's the if that's the facts, there's not enough people to really make it statistically significant
Okay.
to mention. I mean, what would you say that percentage would be? 5% of Yoga
I could be
Hosers
5%.
fans?
It could be 5% of fans who came out because they wanted more Yoga Hosers related content. If you had switched in Nosferatu, instead of Lily Rose Depp, the same character was played by her Yoga Hosers co-star Harley Quinn Smith. Do you think that affects the box office at all?
I that's a great question. I do think that people trust Robert Eggers, so they would assume that he saw something in her performance in that movie to cast her. But I
Mhm.
would have to say there probably would be a drop off,
Okay.
because as much as Lily Rose Depp is not a marquee star, I do think she has a certain appeal that maybe Harley Quinn Smith lacks.
Okay. Okay. So on that level, it's not really this isn't something you could chalk up to Lily Rose Depp, but this will probably help her for sure.
Oh, for sure.
This is a big thing for when she books her next movie. Um, what about Aaron Taylor Johnson? So Aaron Taylor Johnson, Craven the Hunter, he's been the whipping boy on the show and around Hollywood. Reportedly, Craven the Hunter's tanking is so bad that it has affected him as the guy who's had the pole position to be the next Bond. Does being a Nosferatu help him at all? I've got my opinion on it, but I want to get yours. Is this a win for him? Does this help him get the License to Kill back on track?
Oh, I mean, if anything, it puts him it it helps a little bit, but he's still in a really terrible position, I think.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't think he's not the lead in this, and I know there's a lot of buzz online about his m package or whatever you wanna say, but I
So
think
does
that's
he show
just
with a package? Is that what
no,
would
it's just
happen in
people
this?
looking at it's just people who have nothing better to do than to look at the package, like, I mean, I think, like, we say tweets aren't ticks, and dicks aren't ticks either,
Mhm.
truly, so I don't think that that matters at all. So, yeah, I think this by no means rights the ship, but
Right,
I think
right.
this is something that is positive, but I think the real test is gonna be, does he tank 28 years later?
Well, we saw the trailer for that because you and I, and we'll talk about this movie in a minute. We saw Complete Unknown together in
Mhm.
theaters, and that was one of the trailers. Was the 28 Years Later Danny Boyle sequel, and amazing trailer. I mean, the trailer looks great. So excited for this movie. It definitely doesn't position Aaron Taylor Johnson as the star.
No.
You see flashes of him walking around a field, so he's in it. But
Mhm.
honestly, the bigger star in that trailer is people guessing whether or not that's Killian Murphy popping up as a zombie corpse for
Mhm.
2 frames. Like,
Yeah.
if that movie opens to $50 million, I think you give Killian Murphy more credit for it than Aaron Taylor Johnson. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll see what that movie does for him. Yeah, I don't think this does anything for him. He was not pushed in the advertising for Nosferatu. You hear way more about Lily Rose Depp in it. You hear way more about the director. I mean, we got boots on the ground reporting from a close, member of the BO Boy show, and this was what she said about Nosferatu. Which said it's very long and kind of gross, but I liked it. Great.
Mhm. Good.
And then she says also Aaron Taylor Johnson is short and has a high-pitched weenie voice, thumbs down on him. So I
Wow.
won't say exactly who this was because that is a very pointed criticism of Aaron Taylor Johnson. And this person, who knows, they won't
They
give this away, may want to work with Aaron Taylor Johnson someday on some kind of web series or game show or something when he falls,
Yeah.
when he's at that level. So uh won't say their name, but what do you think of that critique? Short and weenie voice. I mean, if people are coming away from Nosferatu thinking he's short and has a weenie voice, does that help him as Bond?
No. No. That's never been the way anybody has described Bond ever. Like,
Short
when
with a
they
weenie voice.
describe Bond, the villains are talking about him, or we haven't seen him yet, and when a character is talking about how cool James Bond is, they never say short, weenie voice, wears a tuxedo,
Right, right, right,
great with women.
right, right. Good,
That's
great poker player, but has a weenie voice.
yeah, and it's
You
short.
don't hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't think that the package helps? And again, we haven't seen this yet. I have not seen this package, but uh, if there's talk about someone's package, that usually is a positive, right? I mean, you think of Brett Favre, that was a huge, part of his career. Um, you don't think that the talk about the package helps Aaron Taylor Johnson?
I think I actually think that we were he's 5'11", by the way, Aaron Taylor Johnson. So maybe he just comes off as short, which is bad because 5'11" is fairly average height. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
think
would say on the taller end of people. Yeah.
of average, yeah. I'm starting to think that tweet was fake. Like, I
Wow.
feel like
Okay.
that tweet was put
A
there by
doctored
his
package.
people. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's put there by his people to try to drum up interest in his package,
Right. Right.
and I mean, it really hasn't gotten any traction.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about it. I'm slightly aware of it, but it hasn't been brought up at the Christmas dinner table.
Yeah, and I feel
Um,
like, that's one of the easiest places to stuff. You
yes,
know what I mean?
yes. Famously, yes, you get a cucumber or a couple of yams or whatever. Yeah, you
Mhm.
could. It's all you need is some cheap food.
Yeah,
I mean, look here. I'm drinking a water bottle. You
put
shove
that
this,
down your shorts, yeah.
put that on my shorts, and then boom, the internet is going wild about BO packages. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so
yeah,
I
so
think
that's a doctored package. Yeah.
unless you show it, then I just don't think there's anything to really talk about.
What about Nicholas Holt? Because our boots on the ground reporter then says doesn't help to put him next to 6'3" Nicholas Holt. Um, is I think Nicholas Holt is someone who could gain something from this because he's someone who I do think people are more apt to want to like and want to uh uh you know not blame him when things go wrong and give him credit when things go right. I feel like he's just got that sort of, when his other Dracula movie. This is his second Dracula movie of the year, Nicholas Holt, because he was in Renfield. I guess Renfield was last year.
Yeah, Redfield was last year, I feel like.
Yeah, Renfield's 2023. When Renfield came out and pretty much bombed, people weren't like, all right, let's, put a stake through Nicholas Holt's heart to send. People were like, oh, he's a nice guy. He should be in pictures more. So I think he's going to get a lot of positive buzz out of Nosferatu doing well because I think people just want to like him.
Mhm, mhm. But I mean, it doesn't feel like he's the guy in the movie that you're going to see this movie for. I mean, that's the thing I'm coming out of Nosferatu with is, like, when you look at something like A Complete Unknown, there's
Okay,
2
let's talk about it.
things that people are seeing this movie for: Bob Dylan
Yep.
and Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
And they're not saying that about Nosferatu. They're saying Dracula,
Yep.
or horror in general, and they're
Mhm.
saying Robert Eggers. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is like Nicholas Holt's not being talked about, Lily Depp's not being talked about, Aaron Taylor Johnson's not being talked about. So
Mhm.
when you're talking about what is a star-driven hit, what is going to help somebody's stock even more, you look at something like A Complete Unknown.
Yes.
That's the sort of thing that if Timothy Chalamet is not the Bob Dylan, this movie does zip.
Yes.
Like
Yes. I mean, look,
If Aaron Taylor Johnson is Dylan, this movie does negative money.
if Aaron Taylor Johnson as Bob Dylan would do worse than a digitized monkey as Bob Dylan. I think
Mhm.
if you were going to cast Aaron Taylor Johnson as Bob Dylan, you were better off going the Robbie Williams Better Man route and digitizing a monkey to play him.
Yeah.
And of course, both of those versions would do terribly.
Yeah.
Whereas the Chalamet of those three, to play Bob Dylan, I would go worst choice is Aaron Taylor Johnson. Second worst choice is a digital monkey a la Robbie Williams movie. Best choice is, of course, what we did get, which is Timothy Chalamet. Do you agree with
Mhm.
that ranking?
Yes, I think that's the ranking, and I think it's, crazy, to rank it any other way.
Yes, yes. So it made 23 million in the 5 day. It made what did it make in the 3 day? 13 million
11
in the 3 day.
11.6, it looks like. That's what
11.6. So that is a lot of money on uh Christmas Day and the day after Christmas. I mean, 23 million in the 5 day for remember, this is a Fox Searchlight release. It got a lot of sort of press because Chalamet did such a great job of being everywhere promoting it. But this is in the end a smaller release,
Mhm,
especially when it's up against Wicked and Moana 2 and Mufasa and Sonic and even Nosferatu. These are bigger movies.
mhm.
So I a while ago, I think I threw out the let's get nuts prediction of it does 30 million in the 5 day. So I'm pretty happy with it coming as close as it did to that
Mhm.
number because that would have been a totally bananas 5 day if this movie had gotten to 30 million.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of, you know, we're not really talking about Baby Girl because it did very little, and I do think it's not gonna break out from what I'm hearing about this movie. It's a
Hmm.
fun little trifle, but it's not quality enough to be a big hit, and it's
Yeah,
not horny enough to
that's what I've
be
heard. It's not horny enough. Yeah.
yeah, to be a breakout hit as well, so it's in this weird middle thing, but, uh, yeah, so, like, I think that was Nosferatu and Baby Girl were sort of the young person's choice this weekend. And
Okay.
I think Complete Unknown is gonna be the choice for next weekend. Like, I do think this is a movie that's getting good word of mouth.
Yep.
Timmy's everywhere, and I do think, like we've seen, movies don't necessarily unless they're complete and total bombs that are front loaded, this movie, I don't think is gonna completely tank next weekend. I don't think everybody who's wanted to see this movie has seen this movie yet,
Yeah.
because
I yeah.
we have a crowded landscape. I mean, just look at what we have in theaters right now: Sonic, Mufasa, Nosferatu, Wicked, Moana, A Complete Unknown, Baby Girl, Gladiator 2 still kind of kicking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's so many different sort of movies to choose from, and people are have their priority list.
Yes. Yeah, I think this is a great start for this movie to already have 23 and change in the bank. And I definitely think this is a movie that is going to have a great remember the Christmas corridor is not over.
No.
We're recording this on a Sunday and there's people who have to go back to work on the Monday, but for the most part, a lot of people are off either this entire week or at least through Wednesday. Kids, for the most part, are off all week. So the Christmas corridor goes for another 7 days, I would say. It's Monday through next weekend is your Christmas corridor. And I think every day Complete Unknown is still going to rake a couple of million. It's going to have a big weekend next weekend, or at least a good hold. And it's also just going to be a movie that if the studio doesn't, and this is the nightmare scenario, doesn't put it on PVOD and doesn't put it on streaming in the next month, it is absolutely a movie that is going to be pretty steady because we got the Golden Globes happening uh next Sunday, and I think Timmy's winning that Best Actor trophy. I think he's winning that,
for
and it's
musical
good.
comedy.
I think he's in the drama category, but we'll talk about that. We should do an episode next weekend talking about the Globes, but there's a good chance he wins there. The Oscar noms are happening in a few weeks. Timmy's getting the Best Actor nom. This movie's getting a Best Picture nom. This is a movie that easily could make another 30 or 40 million dollars in the next month or so.
Mhm.
Easily. So this is a great start. This is the kind of start that puts a $60 million domestic take on the table. It's
Mhm.
on the table with this movie.
Yeah.
Um so are we saying huge win for now for Timmy? Are we? I sent a message, was messaging to the great podcast Jesus Kirk Minahan. We're going over some Christmas corridor releases, and I said I just watched A Complete Unknown. We've got a new movie star on our hands. Do you think that I jumped the gun on that message, saying that with Chalamet we got a new movie star on our hands?
We already designated him as a movie star
Okay.
previous to this with Dune and with
And
Wonka.
Wonka. Okay. Well, the lawyer test, and I think we should really give this another round when we have Kirk on, which will happen in the next few weeks. Um, Coming off of this, where obviously Dylan is IP, he's playing a major historical figure, but I do think a hit like this puts him closer to being able to headline a movie in which he plays a lawyer.
Yeah,
You're
but the
closer
thing
with this movie than you are with Wonka.
yeah, I mean, I just think at this point we're I love the lawyer test as much as anybody else, but we also
Great
live in
test.
a different landscape, right? And so he is what a star is now. Like,
Mhm.
he just is, right? And I think, yeah, this definitely helps. I mean, I will say, though, I mean, we'll see how this movie does going down the line. That's really gonna be the test. This was
Yeah,
really, really, really good opening. It's
yeah,
not blowing anybody away. I think it's surprised it it did at the top of what people thought it could do, other than going with 30 or whatever. But I think it's really gonna be what are the legs on this, you know? If he
yeah,
gets it to 60, I agree. I think this is like a huge win for him. But I do think he already was what you would say is a star in 2024.
yeah. I think what's big for him, and we both saw this, is that this is the movie in which he got to play what the kids call a fuck boy, and they spell it with a I instead of a Y, and they love it, and that's great. This is the first time he got to play that in a huge movie. He sort of played a quote unquote fuck boy in Lady Bird.
Mhm.
And I guess Call Me by Your Name. Maybe that's what you would say, that he played that, or beautiful. I
I
haven't
don't
seen
think he was
Beautiful
a
Boy.
yeah. Well, maybe he was
He
a
wasn't a
fuckboy
fuck
in
boy.
that.
So he finally got to, because he definitely didn't play that in Wonka, and didn't play that in the Dune movies. Though I guess like I haven't read the books, but I feel like the sequel, Dune Messiah, Dune 3, maybe he's a fuck boy in that.
Don't
But
know.
he got to play that for sure as Bob Dylan. And this is the type of movie that is going to, the young women and young men were ready, very curious about him, very into him. I think this is the movie where he totally wins that audience over.
Mhm.
Obviously this is not Titanic, of course, but it's the same type of performance that Leo gave in that he gets to give in this movie that really get the young people into you.
Oh, I mean, that's pretty hyperbolic to say that this is the same sort of performance as a Titanic performance. I mean,
I mean,
he's
role. Obviously, of course, not. But I'm saying the things that people like about you in that role, where he gets to be the heartthrob in a way again that he doesn't get to be in Wonka.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really funny to think of Bob Dylan as a heartthrob, but at some point he was.
Yeah, uh, Bob Dylan, huge win for him. Would we say that? Because he's
Oh yeah.
had a spotty movie career. Movies he's written, other movies where they portray Dylan. This is his first hit on film.
Yeah, everything else has been intentionally I think everything else has been, like, unintelligible intentionally,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
this is the
yeah.
first movie that has tried to actually tell the Dylan story in, like, a legitimate narrative, next to, like, Inside Llewyn Davis, which was obviously, like, trying to be Dylan. You know what I
Right.
mean?
But also was not commercial at all.
No. But it
Um,
was a narrative that people could understand.
yes, yes. Um, do we think this is a franchise? Because the way this is not a cradle to grave movie.
Mhm.
And obviously Dylan's not in the grave yet, but he will be. And you could have done a movie where you just imagine what his death would be like. But this was not that. This was here's 5 years of Dylan. He rides into town, rides out of town, very, very easily setting you up for sequels. Could
Mhm.
you see Mangold and Timmy going back, doing a Bob Dylan in the '70s movie? And I know the thing you wanna know, do they do a 2-hour movie around the soy bomb incident?
I mean, if you're talking Soy Bomb, that is the 4th movie,
Okay, okay.
because that would be '90s Dylan.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, if they did '60s, they do '70s, they have to do '80s. '80s would be a tough one to get through,
Mhm.
because, he goes all Christian. So
Right.
that would be an interesting one. It could kill the franchise
But
before
it
we
could
get
be
to
a
Soy Bomb.
but it's a church bus movie, so it could be the biggest one of all.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the guy who did The Chosen and The Greatest Christmas Pageant Ever to I think
Mhm.
you do revolving directors with this the way they did Mission Impossible before it became, uh, you know, all the same people. I think that's an
Right.
interesting way to do it.
Right. So the '80s Dylan movies directed by the guy who created The Chosen.
Yeah.
Um, the one issue with that, and I think I totally agree, that's a great way to go, is could he then, because this is his guy, greatest Christmas pageant ever, did well, would he force the noxious presence that is Pete Holmes to be in the '80s Dylan movie that he directs, the church bus version of Dylan? Would he force that upon us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that he's in there, I don't think he's necessarily like the stable of actors the way like, Altman had a stable of actors. So I don't think that we have to worry about seeing Pete Holmes in the Dylan movie directed by the Chosen guy.
Okay, okay, so he's not the, Elliot Gould to Altman, you're saying?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay,
I mean,
um,
if he's in the next movie, because that '80s Dylan movie ain't coming out for a long time. Uh, if Pete Holmes is in the next movie, then I can change my tune, but right
right,
now I
right.
feel like, yeah, it's
Or
all
if
good.
he's just star of The Chosen season 4.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so I would love to see that. I think, yeah, modern movie stardom is often based on having your franchises, and Chalamet has done such a great job of he hasn't had to do the superhero movies. So
Mhm.
his franchises are, he could do another Wonka movie. Obviously, there'll be a third Dune at some point. Dylan could be his other franchise.
Yeah. I mean, Leo told Chalamet not to do superhero movies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he was smart to tell him that.
So Chris Evans, he never had that sit down with Leo
No,
of
no.
because Leo would have at least told, okay, you did the superhero movies, but don't go back. Don't go back for Avengers Doomsday. Leo would have said that. Or Leo probably would have no idea what any of those words mean, right? Do you think Leo knows what Doomsday is?
Oh, probably not.
Right. I mean, he would know, he would think of it, it's a climate catastrophe. But as in terms of it being a movie that's scheduled to come out in 6 years, he wouldn't know that.
Well, Doomsday, I think, is known by the women who date Leo, and that is the day they turn 26. That is
Yeah.
Doomsday. That's the only
That is
Doomsday he
Doomsday.
knows, is that
Yes.
he'll say, "I do like you, but Doomsday is coming up," and they know what it
Do,
means. They
yes.
gather their care package and, their Beats headphones that
Yes.
he
They all get
graciously
a pair
gave
of Beats.
them,
Yeah.
and, they leave the yacht.
Yes. Yes.
And
And
it's all
and
above board and understood.
yes, and it's on international waters, and everyone signed the contract. And they got their,
Mm,
again, they get their Beats by Dre
yeah.
headphones, and you could and listen, honestly, grab whatever you could fit into a bag before you jump off the yacht.
He's
You
fine
know,
with that.
he's fine with that.
Yeah.
So there is a chance that Leo told Chris Evans to avoid Doomsday, but he meant 26th birthday.
Mhm.
Um, Yet Chalamet, he's making all the right moves. 23 million is a great start. I do think the next week's going to tell a lot of this story. And then it's got to do well through January. Because, I mean, we did the winter preview with Jeff Bach, Exhibit Relations Co. January is a bit dry. Den of Thieves, or some movies coming up. But Complete Unknown could really do well through the month. Again, especially if it gets the Oscar noms, win some Golden Globes. It could become the adult movie of the time, and the kids are going to be into Bob Dylan as a fuckboy. Jacob Dylan, do we get a biopic of Jacob Dylan because the Bob Dylan movie is doing well? Do you think there will be a Wallflowers big screen biopic in the next 3 years?
I mean, I think that is the spin-off of the Dylan franchise if that happens. I think we have to still see what goes on with the Dylan franchise. I don't think it can stand on its own. I think that's the sort of thing that you're
Mm.
on 2000s Dylan movie and it's all right, it's not doing that great. You're like, next steps, is it the Wallflowers?
Well, you would introduce the character of Jacob Dylan in the fourth or maybe fifth Bob Dylan movie, where whoever is playing Jacob Dylan in One Headlight, the movie, that character is a big part of probably the 90s Dylan movie, right?
Yeah,
That's
because
when you
that's when the Wallflowers came out. So you would see that sort of, you know, he's dealing with, Dylan's dealing with, "Oh, I have a son who's at the top of the game right now."
well, then actually, I think you're introducing the Jacob Dylan character in the 80s Dylan church bus movie, because that's probably when he's talking about how his son is got this interest in music, and he's thinking of putting a band together, and then you do the spin-off, then you do One Headlight, the movie.
Mhm, mhm.
So very, it's again, and I'm sure Timmy would have EP credit on One Headlight. He would definitely get a taste of that. So it's a great spot to be in. He's got his own BDCU. So this is modern movie stardom.
Mhm.
And I think he's making all the right moves. So Babygirl, we touched on it. Um, would it end up doing 5 million in the 5 day? Is
Or oh,
that what
5
it
day?
in the it did in the 3 day 4.39, in the 5 day did 7.2. So again, I think that's fine. It's a very small movie. Uh, it's great to see a movie where basically the only promise of it is that you're gonna get horniness, and
Mhm.
it sold $7 million worth of tickets. I agree though. I haven't heard enough to make it feel like this is not Disclosure. This is not a sex sensation. This is not a sexation. We could
Mhm.
say. I don't think it's going to be.
I haven't heard from anybody who's seen this movie, it gave me what I wanted.
Mm,
Like, that I've
hmm.
not heard, and I think a movie like Babygirl should give you what you want.
Yes, yes. You haven't heard reports that uh, the theater floors are stickier than usual, which is what
Mhm,
you'd
mhm.
want to hear
Yeah,
for the legs on Baby Girl to be what you'd want them to be.
for
You'd
sure.
want to hear about super sticky floors.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I haven't got. Although, listen, give us, our wannabe old boys, wannabe old girls, wannabe old people. They're busy. They're
People.
with their families. But if you have been to a Baby Girl screening, and your feet get stuck, let us know, because
Mhm.
then that's a good sign that this movie could have solid legs.
We wanna know.
Um, but still great for Nicole Kidman that basically, again, the movie is sold on she's going to be horny, and they sold $7 million worth of tickets for it over Christmas.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what? Congratulations to the people who went to it this week and managed to either extradite themselves from a family dinner or even get family members to go with them to see this
Mhm,
movie. Because that is a special kind of moviegoer.
mhm.
Anything else you want to say about Baby Girl? Do you plan on seeing it? Which of these movies? So we both saw Complete Unknown. We haven't seen Nosferatu yet. We haven't seen Baby Girl yet. Haven't seen Sonic 3 yet. Any of these feel like must see in the theater for you personally?
Um, no. I think
Okay.
the movie that's feeling more like must see in the theater isn't even on this chart right now, and it's the Robbie Williams Monkey movie. Just because I don't
Okay.
think we're gonna see anything like it again anytime soon.
Okay. I think for me, Nosferatu, I will see that in the theater. I'll say that right now. But are we doing this? Are we doing Robbie Williams monkey movie in the theater? Is this a promise level to the audience, or is this just a tease level?
I mean, I think at this point it's a tease level.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, the movie I think is a must see in theaters is that. Now, will I actually see it? That's a whole different story.
I
'Cause
mean, no
I
one
actually
has
don't
seen this movie.
I don't know when it where and when it's showing at the moment. Like, I know it's limited release,
Mhm.
but I can't imagine it's gonna be in a lot of theaters. Let's
It's
see.
supposedly going wide, I think, next Friday. I do think that Friday, January 3rd, it's supposed to get a quote unquote wide release. I mean, that could just mean 900 theaters. It could be some craziness where this movie will be in 2,000 theaters. I do think either way, that is going to be that's Playmobil the movie territory in terms of a
For
wide
America.
release for America. I mean, worldwide, sure. Um, but and I also think is it getting over talked about how big of a star he is outside the United States? Is he truly that big of a star
I mean,
outside the United?
he is. No, he's
He is. Okay.
gigantic. Yeah.
Gigantic. Okay. Um this then has to be one of the biggest differences in terms of stardom in US versus not US, or at least something's getting a US release, because Robbie Williams, I don't know if anyone has ever meant less being the focus of a wide release movie than Robbie Williams. Playmobil
Um,
means way more than Robbie Williams.
I mean,
to
I
an
think
American
kids in
audience.
America, yeah, kids in America had Playmobil, at least even if it was at the bottom of their toy box, you know?
Yes, yes. Yes. No one had Millennium action figures. And also, it is we can't stress this enough. He's being played by a monkey, a digital monkey.
Mhm.
Um, which I Planet of the Apes movies do well, obviously Kong, but I don't think singing digital monkeys have much currency in the States. But we'll see. But that'll be an interesting opening weekend to document, because this could be record breaking. Um, Anything else you want to say about the Christmas first half of the Christmas corridor results? Anything else strike you?
Not really. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job of going over it, talking about it, you know?
I agree. I think we did a great job. And yeah, I think this was, we didn't do an episode on Christmas. Just too much going on, too many packages to open, gifts to unwrap, cookies to eat. We just couldn't do it. But I think we more than made up for it with this first half of the Christmas corridor review episode. We nailed it.
Mhm. Yep.
So email us, theboboyspodcast at gmail.com. We've got some emails that we will get to. We'll get the mailbags getting a little thick, so we'll lance it pretty soon. We will get to those. So
Mhm.
email us, theboboyspodcast at gmail.com. Of course, we are YouTubers. Hey guys.
Hey, guys.
Of course, forgive my lighting situation because I am off-site. I'm at an undisclosed family location right now, but you know, we'll get back to, and we're going to be in studio a lot in 2025. That's a tease. So you gotta subscribe now to the BO Boys YouTube channel, because in studio, I think, is going to be a bigger part of 2025. So you're going to want to see that. So subscribe to the YouTube channel.
I
Follow
would
us
like
on.
I would
Yeah.
like me to be a monkey in
Okay.
2025. I wanna do that.
You know,
I like that. I think that's, the more I think about it, that would be my ideal, is that I'm just a monkey in these.
a digital monkey. I think that it could be doable. I haven't reached out about this, but the monkey that was used in Robbie Williams' Better Man, that movie is going to lose so much money, and they're going to need to monetize the digital monkey in that movie. I do think there's a chance we'd be able to get that digital monkey to be the monkey representation of Clayton in 2025, because they're going to need to monetize that digital monkey.
So we could lease him out for, a couple bucks an episode.
Yeah,
He's the monkey. I mean, yeah, I mean, and also we could just figure out a filter. There's gotta be some, like, monkey face filter. I mean, I know it's like it's gonna look a little bit more low tech, but,
right.
you know,
How about we do our due diligence? We
reach out.
reach out to the studio first, see if we could strike a deal to get the Robbie Williams digital monkey to play Clayton on our YouTube show.
Mhm.
Maybe they do it just for a rev share. They get a piece of the YouTube ads. We then get rights in perpetuity to have Clayton portrayed as a Robbie Williams monkey. We'll throw that out there. If they say no, then we look for the free filters.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it would be great. I would love right now to be just looking at the screen and I see a digital monkey holding a microphone.
It'd be so
That would
much
be
better. It'd be
fantastic.
so
Yeah,
much
it would be
better.
better. So follow us on YouTube, more in the studio, possible monkey as Clayton. A lot of things to look forward to there. Follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, Twitter X. Sure, we're still there once in a while. But wanna BO Senior VP of Interns Christopher, killing it with the vertical videos. And yeah, he got that promotion in October, and he's just been killing it ever since. So good on Christopher. And 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And yeah. And just got to tease it. Next episode, you might be thinking, oh, there's not a lot of movies opening Friday, January 3rd. I wonder what they're going to talk about. We've got a very special episode planned. Not going to go into details, but we've had different listeners reach out with this idea, and it's going to happen. Here, all I'm going to say is 2025 box office draft. That's all I'm going to say. Next episode. So that you got that to look forward to. It's going to be huge. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it, Clayton. I think other than a Merry Christmas corridor, I got nothing left to say.
I finished, and Pat, you said it all.
Right.
There's nothing left to be said.
All right. Let me get back to the Christmas tree.
Except for until next time.
We'll smell you at the box office.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.